Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's split back over to the PowerPoint. We will come back to the Excel spreadsheet, but we have a few more slides. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, no, go back. Sorry, I had you go too far. One more back. All right. So the green summaries that were at the top of each of the spreadsheets, I've copied that information over to this slide, and this gives a good summary of the proposed community grant application slates. So just as a reminder, the Opioid Abatement Council office took the percentages for each of the strategies. We looked at the scores, we took the passing scores, and then this is merely our suggestion, our way to organize this in an efficient and effective manner for the Opioid Abatement Council. But this is what it would look like if it were taken just as it is. How many grant awards for each of the strategies, how many passing scores there actually are, the amount of funding that is going towards those strategies based on the recommendations of the Opioid Abatement Council, and then how much capital funding is included for each of these strategies. Okay, next slide. So we saw this earlier, and this is also in the workbook. This is looking at the option 1, option 2, also pointing out the unallocated funds again for research, because the requested funds did not equal all of the allocated funds. Next slide. And then also just to give a bird's eye view of the agency sizes, definitely this is something that we heard was important to the Opioid Abatement Council, but you can see the small annual operating budgets, the medium annual operating budget, and then the large annual operating budget. And you can see how the proposed grant awards varies by agency sizes. All right, and then I'm going to turn this over to Steve. He wanted to talk a little bit about that first meeting back in July.
Yes, thanks, Mary. First of all, does anybody have any questions about what we've covered so far? I mean, I think the staff did a really good job of getting with all of us before we came in here today. So is there anybody have any questions or concerns other than what's already been pointed out? Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to our first meeting, July 8th, 2022. We met at the Tennessee Tower in Nashville. A.G. Slattery, who was on his way into retirement. I think this may have actually been his last act, looking back on it. We're pretty close to it. I remember that day he charged us. He said that this council will be putting forth or setting the stage for addiction treatment and all the things related to addiction treatment for the next 2 to 3 decades. And that kind of rattled me a little bit. In 30 years, I'll likely be dead. So I think this is will be the legacy of this council of how this money goes to forward the treatment of people with opioid addiction. Well into our kids' lives. He talked about the earmarking and how this money is to be spent. We've seen articles. We actually had one article written nationally that targeted Greene County, Tennessee, and that was from the funds that came directly from the fund administrator, and they had spent it on some things that got the attention of the press, and some good things actually came out of that, believe it or not. But we know what this is earmarked for. We know what we have to use it for. We've got the remediation list that folks need to be looking at and realizing that we are going to watch, and this is going to be a transparent process, and we do care what it's spent on. We've got an opportunity here. Begin with the end in mind, and I was reading some research that I had done on a case that I had worked as part of this settlement, because I worked on it on the front end. And if we spend our opiate abatement dollars appropriately, and we do everything, and this is not just Tennessee, this is all the states, according to computer modeling, it will take to the year 2046 or 2048 to get to 1997 levels of overdose deaths in the United States. And I think that's a pretty sobering fact. And so I think that it kind of ups the ante on us being successful with how we allocate these dollars. And then the last word that AG Slater gave us was accountability. I remember him saying that Tennessee is a fiscally responsible state, and we are. And he said, we want to spend our money on things that work. And really, guys, the only way to do that is to measure it. And I think we've set up a system on the back end that is capable of doing that. And will we have the courage going forward to move our money from things that aren't working to moving our money to things that are? And I think that, that'll remain to be seen. I'm proud of what we've done up until this point. I think anytime we look back on it, I think there can always be a better job by me and by everybody else. I don't think any of us are under the illusions that this is going to be 100% perfect, but I am excited today that we're going to get money into our communities that are hurting. And then the last thing that you talked about is really, the service that we've all put forward. It's a lot of work. I mean, Sage scoring all 380 some of those, I can't even imagine that. But those of you, that scored the ones that you did, in addition to the jobs that you do every day, I mean, I just applaud the work and I applaud the dedication. And some of you stepped into this without, a good understanding of the overall picture. And watching people, be curious and want to learn about that through this process has encouraged me. And then when I look at our grant applications, I guess the thing I was scared about when we got started is I'm scared we won't get anything for recovery support. I don't know why I was scared about that. But to me, that's, outside of prevention, that's the thing. That's where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, these are the social determinants of health that determine 95% of our overall health care. The people in this room, housing and jobs and things like that. So I was really, really encouraged by that. Things I'm a little bit disappointed in, not having research proposals put forward to even meet the amount of money that we allocated for that. And I certainly don't want to spend our money on things that we don't think are appropriate just because we have to spend our money. That's the $700 toilet seat. So I don't want that. But I do want the research institutes out there to know that we do need research in these fields. And this council is actively looking at research applications. So if I look at the things that are disappointing to me, I guess that one would be the most disappointing. Yes, Commissioner. Yes, ma'am. You bet.
So even though there may not be a total research application that's come forward that gets funded, many of the components have been researched, and that may be something to keep in mind as you look at what's being proposed.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. You bet. Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, so before I turn it back over to Steve and the council, just a reminder how the $81 million is stratified through the 6 strategies, the defined percentages, and then the proposed funding amounts. Next slide. And then here are the proposed community grant application slates again. And we can just for the council and for Steve, we can go back and forth between any of the PowerPoint slides, and we can also display the Excel spreadsheets. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Mary. And thanks for your all's hard work. When they presented this to me the first time, about a week and a half ago, I was just blown away at the work that's been done. We have a break schedule for 11:45. To my knowledge, it's about 9:45 Eastern time, if I'm correct. And there is absolutely no possible way that I'm going to be able to wait till 11:45 to use the restroom. So I would like to propose, unless anybody has an objection, I'd like a 10-minute break, and then we can come back in and get to the meat of our morning work. Any objections? All right, so we'll take a 10-minute break. Let's be back at 5 minutes till. Thank you. So I thought it may have a chance in here. If we can find our way back to our seats and get back to work at hand. Reconvening the Opioid Abatement Council meeting of March the 18th. All right, so the first thing we want Mary to address is the conflict of interest. You notice that in the right-hand category, we had several conflicts of interest. If any of them were overlooked, and now that you look up there and see that you have a conflict, please let us know. but we want to talk about how to handle those, because if we come to some sort of agreement here and we accept these things in block and you have to recuse yourself, you'd be recusing yourself from the whole block. And that's not the idea here. And so, Mary, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, Ella, could you display the Excel spreadsheet? And then I may also ask Sam to help out as well. But we do have the column for the conflicts of interest, and just making sure for everybody to look over that and make sure that any and all conflicts are resolved. But depending on just advice, suggestion from the office, there is a possibility to break up these slates so that those with conflicts of interest don't have to abstain. So it might be that this slate could be broken up into like 3 parts, or no, 2 parts. It's just Brian. 2 parts where Brian can vote on the applications where he does not have a conflict of interest, but then he can not vote on the other slate. Sam, did I explain that okay?
Yeah, and again, I think there's several ways to get to where you want to go, but one of the options could be, say, you have a slate that you generally agree on. The ones that have conflicts, you pull those out from the slate. Then you vote on the slate as a whole, and then you vote individually on the ones that have a conflict, and then have the members that are conflicted out abstain from voting.
So
Thank you.
just personally from the chair seat, I really like that option that Sam just put forward. Is that okay with everybody? I mean, I think a nodding will be okay on that one. Okay, it seems like the general consensus is that's the option that we'll go with. Thank you, Sam. All right. One more thing before we get into this. The pictures that you all saw earlier today, that actually came from a Facebook group, and they put the post out yesterday afternoon to ask folks around the state to send pictures. We had 130 of them on there. It just zoomed past 200, and they're still coming in. So go ahead.
All right. Well, I think that's all the office has to present. And Steve, any other words from you?
I don't think so. What I told you at the start before we got into looking at specifics is I know that there's probably several of you that have a motion to put forward. If we do that, we'll have to address each individual motion, the parliamentary procedure, and go that route. What I'd like to do is open the floor right now for discussions and ideas, and maybe as a group we could formulate a motion that we could address all as a group at one time. It would be my idea. And that's what I would like to do. If there's any objections to it, certainly I'll be entertaining. If you want to put forth a motion, obviously I won't stop that. Dr. Vanderpool.
And if you want to use the microphone, there's a power button.
The other question I had with regards to the conflicts, though, was if the conflicts have already been addressed by the fact that the people with conflicts did not score the applications, do we need to recuse ourselves from voting on the slate? Because many of our voting members have conflicts, but do we have to recuse ourselves from voting on the overall slate? I'm just asking for a process question.
Thanks, Dr. Vanderpool, and I will defer to Sam with that one.
Yeah, I would recommend sort of the process that I had outlined of recusing yourself from that individual vote and taking those out. I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it.
And looking at this, and I appreciate the question, Stephanie. I'm not worried about conflicts personally. I mean, I know the integrity of the people that I see. They've named their conflicts. you know, for me, I get scared that I'm involved in one I don't know I'm involved in. I looked at the ones that were in the pink, and I don't think that's the case for any of them. So, you know, if a mistake is made, it's not going to be one that was made intentionally. But I think I'd agree with what Sam said, and I'd like, you know, there's nobody in the room that's got more experience with this than Marie and Sage. So I'd like to hear what you all say, if that's okay.
That he's suggesting is a good legal suggestion. I'm not an attorney, guys.
And I agree. I would recommend we take a conflict of interest out and vote individually.
And the other thing Dr. Vanderpool put forward was voting on by strategy, which again, I'm just reading the room, although I misread Clay's brow earlier. It looks like everybody is in agreement with that. So I think that's how we'll proceed unless I hear an objection. All right, so let's start off with whatever is tab 1, Ms. Ella.
Yeah, if you put the Excel spreadsheet up. So tab 1 is education and training. And council members, let us know if we need to move from tab to tab, or if there's a specific strategy you would like to start with.
Can we also scroll down to the bottom line and think that was skipped so that we make sure it's all of us that are recommended? Thank you.
And we have an explanation on the white one that's is in the middle of the 2 pink ones from earlier from Tennessee Oncology. And I just saw one up there, guys. I didn't see earlier. There's one 79.94 Tennessee Medical Foundation Incorporated. I didn't see that one earlier. I'm not, I'm a member of that as a participant, not in their organizational hierarchy. So I don't think I have a conflict there.
To the right, so we can see the line numbers, please, because the bold first column B is the average score.
Oh, I think it's the screen that the
Oh.
projection. The
Okay.
projection's cutting off the numbers.
So the numbers on our far left.
Yeah,
Okay.
the row numbers. Oh, there we go. Good job, Ella.
And then now click on the bottom right-hand corner and manually says.
Awesome.
Then top right corner. I heard that.
It's me laughing. It had taken me 6 months to do that. So
Right. Yeah, and then scroll down just a little bit so we can see the one under
Tennessee Oncology.
Tennessee Oncology. There you go. Perfect.
I was waiting on discussion or a motion. I'll leave it up to the council. You know, as I understand this, and my experience with grants has been that, you know, once you have them scored, you look and see how far down the list that you can fund them. So either discussion or a motion will be entertained.
Mr. Chair, you mentioned it was explanation of college.
Yes.
Would you?
You absolutely, Judge. So, Sage, would you mind addressing that when you addressed it last time, just about why Tennessee Oncology is in white in the middle of the pink?
Yes. So we went on column B, the top score down to the bottom, looked at the threshold of funding. So for education training, it was 10%, which would be a target of 8.1 million. So as we went down, when we got to line 19, which is the Tennessee Oncology, the first year request was approximately 3.9 million. That was put, the total funding amount significantly over the 8.1 million.
That answer your question, Shane? Okay, thank you.
Move approved.
All right, I have a motion to move to approve by Dr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed, those listed out conflicts. I'm one of those. So would you consider, would my colleague consider a friendly amendment that we approve the slate that excludes, the two applications that have, because there are three separate council members, we may need to vote 4 times here.
Absolutely.
So, if we could exclude the two that have, if you'd accept the friendly amendment to exclude the 2 applications that have COIs, and we can vote on the remainder of this each block.
Okay.
Would you accept that amendment, sir? Absolutely.
All right, so the motion and amendment would be that we accept the slate as presented with the exceptions of line 13 and line 17 and vote on those separately, secondary to conflicts of interest from OAC members. Do I have a second? Second by Wayne Wyckoff. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
All right, Armando Fontes,
Yes.
he said yes. I'm skipping Brian Buck.
Mhm.
What should I do?
We're voting on this.
So, okay, so I say Brian Buck.
Yeah.
Casey Cox.
Yeah.
Sharm Allen. Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Karen Pershing.
Yes.
Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton. Mike Flynn. Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool. Steve Lloyd.
Abstain.
Tim Fournette.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
So the motion carries. We'll go back and address the individual conflicts of interest. Line 13, our conflict of interest here is Dr. Jackson.
I'm taking a roll call vote on that.
Well, I guess we have to have a motion to
Sorry.
accept. I got a motion to accept from Dr. Fournette. Second from Ms. Pershing. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes.
Yes.
Brian Buck.
Oh, yes.
I know. Me too, Brian.
Brian's pulled himself out of everything.
Me too. Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, and so I'm skipping Clay. Oh, okay. Clay.
Put on the.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Clay Jackson.
Stay.
Got it. Hey, Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn,
Yes.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wyckoff.
All right, the motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion for line 17 with recusals from Dr. Fournette and Mr. Buck. I move for approval from General Flynn. Do I have a second? A second for Dr. Vanderpool. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
Same.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wyckoff.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you all. We just spent some money. All right, next tab. And congratulations to the recipients.
All right, and so this one, Ella, if you can scroll all the way up to the top, this one is showing 2 variations, 2 options. Keep going. There's all the way up to the top. There you go. 2 options for the council to consider. So there's option number 1, and then scroll down to the option number 2. And you can see the differences in the peach.
So I'll start discussion of this one. If we don't fund the top one, obviously the Meharry Ross project, we can fund the second option fully in pink that you see there, which would include some of our small and medium medium-sized applicants. With that said, I would like to hear Dr. Moore's thoughts on this, if that's okay.
Well, it's stated there. There'd be many other variations that you could look at. Given the fact that we're number 2 in the country as far as overdose deaths, I think this is a category that we need to try to spread some more money out. I'd like to see us consider reducing the amount of grant to Meharry to $5 million. And that way, that would free up some additional money to fund additional folks. And then also, whenever we get to research, since there is some unallocated money, find that so that we can fund additional areas of harm reduction. And so I'd like to hear the council's thoughts on that, but I'm glad to make such a motion if that's something that the council would understand.
Absolutely. And we obviously be willing to entertain a motion, but I'd like to hear from our council members before we get into that, if that's okay. Dr. Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, this is an intriguing motion by Dr. Moore to use the unallocated funds from research. It's not an opportunity that I had contemplated for this meeting. We didn't know how many outcomes we get, obviously. When we made our categories, we made our best judgment on those, and we weren't aware of our Tennesseans and what they're doing. In case we want to do that, remind me how much money we have that was in allocation and research.
So the question, Ella, is how much money that we have allocated up front for research, which is a different tab. And I do like Bittersweet
I
Symphony.
think we have 3 million, if I remember.
Research and evaluation is go ahead, Sage.
How much did we allocate if we voted on each?
This is one where there are 2 options because one of the applications is duplicative services to SAS.
Right.
So it would range 2.5, 3.5.
Okay. So if we chose the 2.5, we would have roughly 1.5.
That's leftover.
Ella, can you go to the summary sheet and the unallocated column?
Yeah, there you go. That's great.
So on the column L, we have the unallocated for each of the option. And with option 1 and option 2, just as a reminder, the only difference are on 2 of the strategy. Harm reduction and the research.
So if you take out the one with, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
Which would significantly take us further down that list on harm reduction.
Great. All right. Thanks, Dr. Moore. Dr. Jackson.
Trying to figure out the math, but and we haven't really talked about, we've made a qualitative decision so far, awarding or not awarding. We haven't talked about reducing the grant amount. Now, I know we had a lot of discussion about RISE because we considered it for emergency funding or whatever we called that. It was a
Expedited review.
review. Yes. So there was a couple of iterations of that grant application. Does anyone have a sense from that area, if we were to reduce their funding and give them a partial award, whether that would be feasible for them?
I did ask Dr. Cooper that and got a reply. It is feasible. It will lower the amount of Narcan. So
But they would still be able to do something.
yes, that's the information I got from him.
So we had actually thought of that back in, I guess, November, December time range, of reducing it. And it does come down to that. So every other part of that grant would still be in place except for the amount of Narcan. And I'm sorry for using the word Narcan. It should be overdose reversal drugs because there's multiple of those on the market. Their proposal happened to be for Narcan.
Well, for this discussion stage, I think the cleanest way to do this is we can decide yes or no if we want to reallocate funds. If we want to save this, if it's very important that we have these percentages preserved, then we ought to save this 3.3 million, assuming that's what it turns out to, or 2.6, whichever way people vote. We ought to save it for next cycle. But if we're of the mindset, as Dr. Moore indicated, if I infer that properly, that we can get this money out the door and harm reduction is important, as you've said before, Mr. Chairman, it's hard to treat people who aren't alive.
Sorry.
So if we can do research on them, I guess you can research their death certificates, but we got 200 of those.
Right.
I don't want more. So if we're gonna, if we decide we want to reallocate, the cleanest way to do it to me would be to go to research, skip the others right now. Stop this vote right now on, or discussion or consideration of harm reduction right now. Go to research, vote on option 1, option 2, or whatever else you're gonna vote on there. See how much money you got left, and then vote to reallocate it to harm reduction, and then come back to this, see where the math is, and see what we would potentially avoid rise. That's my thinking.
If I could just interject one other thought, and I think the commissioner addressed it, is that there's significant amount of research that's been in every single one of these applications. And I think that as the data is mined and reported, there are going to be more and more opportunities for research moving forward. And I think that, you know, we're just in year 1. We're trying to get money out the door. So I think we can be creative moving forward on the research wherever the data points us.
Thanks.
I don't object to going to the research so that clarifies it, because I think it's important to try to find some additional money for harm reduction.
Thanks, Dr. Moore. Commissioner?
Thank you so much. As I'm watching, looking at all this, this is the first time that I've seen it, Dr. Boyd. One thing that I think is interesting is once we look at these, are we going to look at it in the breakdown of west, middle, and east?
There's a tab, or sorry, there is a column F.
Great. So will we be able, council, once it's approved and agreed upon, to review to make sure what we decided actually looks equitable across the state? Will we take the final vote?
Well, I think as we move through the individual, the individual strategies, that will be the final vote. But if you look at it and how it was presented to me when we had our pre-meeting, is that you can see the mix, and we eyeballed that. So you can see the mix between large cap, medium cap, small cap, east, middle, and west, to make sure that we were trying to be equitable across the state. And some proposals are obviously statewide, so that hopefully would include all 3 grand subdivisions. But you can see, I can't, and I'm not, there's no way my eyesight's going to let me see that. But there are columns up there that will tell us that, and I just can't see which one it is.
Yes, sir.
Column F.
It's all approved. It looks like y'all done. I'm looking at something that shows it where you can look at it and this council see and make sure you agree with that final recommendation. Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you, Commissioner. And that was part of our discussion when we looked at this. We'd had the conversation earlier with the folks who put forth the RISE project proposal about cutting back, and if we look at reallocating that money, as Dr. Moore is suggesting, it gives us more a mix, not only with large, medium, and small cap, but also east, middle, and west, although it's a statewide proposal. And this is why I wanted to do it this way, and rather than have a motion that we had to go back. And so we have plenty of flexibility now to answer the question about, are those percentages, Dr. Jackson, hard and fast? This council, early on when Karen presented this, we wanted the flexibility to be able to move money. And that's why we didn't have them there as hard and fast. And again, I keep going back to the $700 toilet seat. I don't want to do that. I mean, I would much rather reallocate money to things that are needed. And if you look at harm reduction, I hate that term because it has such a negative connotation. To me, they're survival programs. And it's about keeping people alive until we can get them the help that they need. And so I agree with you. I think it's important that Tennesseans today hear this council that we're there after the tornado hit. And we've got our arms out and we're going to help the people in our community, and harm reduction is obviously a very quick way to do that while the cavalry arrives. So if it's okay with the council, I'm sorry, Tommy.
And say that we can reallocate the money. I'm good for that, but I'm not necessarily good with reallocating it just to the one program.
That's a fair point, and obviously none of this stuff I thought of, so that's where I am. But I think that's a fair point, which is why I wanted to keep it like this. General? As I look at this and have, because I didn't have a lot of experience with, allocating grant money before we started this project. But, to me, it's score, it's distribution, and it's size of institution. And this council thought that those three things were important from the very start. So I agree with that. So if it's okay with the council, that I'm not stopping discussion on this particular subject. When we come back to this category, we'll reopen discussion and we can talk about what we want to do. But let's go ahead, Elle, if we will. Let's just go to whatever the next tab is. And we won't take action on it, and let's look and see what kind of distribution we have, what our scores are. And I'm going to rely on you guys to take your own notes here. Yes, Dr. Vanderpool. Would you like to state that in the form of a motion? Sure. All right. That's good and vague, and we can handle that. All right. So I have a motion on the floor that the council retains the ability to reallocate funds that are unspent in other categories. Is that correct? Okay. I've got a motion on the floor. Got a second from Dr. Fournette. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson, Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wyckoff.
All right, motion carries, and thank you, guys. I think it's a good way forward. So Ella, can we just have a look at whatever the next tab happens to be? Next tab is primary prevention.
The scores are above.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Vanderpool, and this is primary prevention. Can we scroll down just a little bit, Ella, just to look, just for me? I'm sorry. I just wanted to see what some of the other dollar amounts is. As I eyeball this, and obviously I'm not I have a computer for a mind, but it looks like we've got a good mix between small, medium, and large cap organizations and East, Middle, and West divisions in our shaded pink areas. Okay, go ahead and do that. If you would, and I'm sorry, 1 second, go, step,
Okay. On to the next applications that had the highest scores overall that were not proposed in the pink area. This shows the next highest scores, which would are all in recovery support. So you see on column, the first column, the average score. So those would be based on top scores, the next ones. We added the additional treatments if that was the largest proportion that the council had recommended as option, but to show the comparison there.
and that's based on score alone. Thank you. Ardella, can we,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't follow that. These are the top scores in all categories or?
Correct.
these are the top scores that are currently unfunded, currently in the white, regardless of category, but they happen to fall into our two biggest categories, I think, which are recovery, support, and treatment. That's based on score alone.
Bit of harm reduction. Yeah. 88.72.
Okay. And the reason it didn't make this list, because it was on one peach option.
But within that particular category,
I got you.
yeah, right.
They didn't make the list either. So
Mhm.
if they were in any peach, it didn't make the list.
Because they were already if we accepted them as a block, they would be funded. That's why they didn't make it. Then the ones that Sage just presented are the highest ones, regardless of category, that did not get funded.
They weren't in any option. Could we, the other ones that are in options besides RISE? I want to treat everybody the same. You know what I'm saying? Like. Struggling with English language.
It's okay. It's allowed in here.
Now you're reading confusion.
Yeah, this is a completely open meeting and everybody in the state of Tennessee is going to know. So have at it.
So what I'm saying is, I look at those scores. I see the 81, that's not the highest rated that potentially wouldn't get funded because in my hearing, there's a toggle switch. It might get funded, it might not, depending on which option we choose. I'd like to see that 88 on this sheet of unfunded people so I can make comparisons. And if there's any other application that's in one of those option 1, option 2, option 3s that didn't make this list, but if we don't fund it, they would drop out. I'd like to see what their scores are.
Yeah. And I think we can go back and look at that if we can get, I think we have, is there 5?
Makes sense what I'm asking?
No, it does make sense. Believe it or not, I track that. I think our ADD syncs up. So if we look at, we have 5, is there 5 categories, 5 strategies or 6? So there's 6 strategies. So far we have looked at 2, correct?
We voted on
We voted on
education,
one, so we got,
education and training.
all right. So we have 5 categories left.
Correct.
Okay, so I would like to go ahead and look at the other categories as we go through, because the score is one thing, and I get where you're going with that, but also the mix between East, Middle, and West, and large, medium, and small cap. So I think it's all of those things. At least for me, it is. And so if we could, Ella, if you would, let's have a gander at the next category. The next category is primary prevention. And look there, our top score is an 87 on that.
Oh, wait.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're
That's
right. Sorry.
I just say, well, it's my eyesight is, Tommy.
But are we not, if we're already voted to move them out of the unallocated funds with research to these others, we're going to move them outside of their allocated percentages. So we'll have to adjust the percentages on each of these categories, whether it's prevention, harm reduction, or education.
Yes, sir. That is correct. Because I mean, I guess from a mathematical standpoint, whatever we reduce research by, when we add up the other percentages, we're going to have to increase those by whatever we allocate to that category, which is what I mean, in all honesty, I mean, you guys are smart. It's what we talked about at the very start. We wanted the ability to do this. Can we scroll down just a little bit, Ella, to get into some of the white categories so we can get a number there? So the number here, the top one in this category is 74.06.
Yeah.
If I'm, my eyes got me. Okay. Any questions around this one? All right, Ella, next category. And this is recovery support, which was our biggest category. And
I might need to say, I noticed, just as you did, that Mid-Cumberland Human Resources is on this. I'm actually on their board.
so we may need to look at that one, Dr. Moore being on the board.
Upper Cumberland, Ken?
No, it's, Mid-Cumberland.
What? Okay.
Line item.
My piece of paper doesn't have it.
Oh, what's more with it?
Oh, there it is. There it is, 28.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, that's my fear of looking at these. There's so many things we work in across the state. I get really scared. There's something I'm involved in and don't know. So it can be challenging. Well, can we scroll down just a little bit more until we get in? Okay, so now we're down to, yeah, so these actually, those top four right there were the four that Sage will put up as the highest scoring non-funded ones in recovery support, which I guess theoretically makes sense. It's the biggest category of proposals that we have. Any questions or discussion on recovery support services? Okay, now I think we can look at treatment.
The only toggle switch we have left. I mean, we got slates in each of these.
Mm-hmm.
The only, if we vote slates, the only toggle switch we have is which option we're going to do in harm reduction.
It is. The harm reduction would, well, there's two pots of money really. If we go with a different option that lowers the Meharry Rise project, then there'll be that amount plus what we didn't spend in research that we can reallocate. To go with the option that totally eliminates the Meharry Rise project, then obviously that increases it more. So that's where we are right now. And looking at these, at the suggestion of Tommy, which I think is a good one, is looking at other things on here that fall outside of those categories that we may want to allocate that money to rather than just one of them.
Yes.
We do. Yeah, I think it's our last one, General. So yeah, we're looking at all of them, just going down the list to get a feel for what we have in other categories. But I think research is actually the last one.
And then we can potentially, so that we don't slow down the whole process of who gets funded at all, then we can potentially take the additional pot of money, whatever that is, and then figure out where to reallocate that.
That's the way I understood it.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure
No,
that
no.
we weren't gonna like completely redo slates, because I can see Mary's eyebrow.
No. We can't do, I won't be able to sleep tonight if we do that. So no, I understand it as you just described it, Dr. Vanderpool. All right, Ella, can we look at research? So we actually have two options with research, generally. Here they are.
Right. And just to reiterate, we did look at the scope of services for the SAS contract, and there was duplication between the University of Memphis's application and SAS's scope.
And so if we look at Dr. Moore's motion and then Clay's addendum to it, we would need to make a decision on which of these two options for research so that we know we have how many dollars we have going forward when we go back to address harm reduction. Or other categories. You bet.
I mean, I'd like to see us vote on this one first, so we know how much unallocated resources.
I don't think we have any choice. I think that this slate it's Well, yeah, we can address each one of them individually and send out for breakfast, but I do think that we need to address this one. This is the fifth of the categories. And I think we need to address research and then move forward as Clay has just described. I have a motion on the floor by Dr. Moore to select option 2 from research. I have a second from General Flynn. Any discussion? So can we have a roll call vote, Mary?
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
Yes.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson, Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
All right, the motion carries. That leaves us an additional 3.297 million unallocated. Okay, Elle, if we could, let's go back where we started. Thank you all for that. Back to harm reduction category. All right, so we have our proposal up there. The slate as it stands right now would be to fund the top 3 is option 1. This is option 2.
And then the office also noticed if we go with option number 2, that does include 2 other applications from Meharry, line 44 and line 45.
So I have a motion on the floor to go with option 2 and a second, I think, from Sheriff Cox. Yes, Dr. Moore.
I was speaking against that motion. Got one of the highest scoring applications in greatest opportunities to get naloxone in communities where they need it. Right now, we have naloxone in places where it's not being as effective as it should be, and I think this program gets the naloxone or into areas that are untapped at this time.
And also provides the media education outreach that's necessary to help awareness.
Thanks, Dr. Moore and Dr. Vanderpool. Any other discussion?
Well, I will mention, this is not the only portion. Funding. That's going straight to the paper on the grant. And then that's already in addition to the 600 million, 600,000 overdoses that have been. So just comment, there's already other programs that are going to be funded as well. And as mentioned, there's only 2 others in this option 3.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Farmer. Dr. Jackson.
Dr. Moore pointing out that for the program at very high school. But as Farmer said, Mary has 2 other projects here. We also just voted that we have 3.7 billion in unallocated funds that we could fund to Meharry Rise project. We've also heard from them directly that they can do work with partial funding. It's not involved in the situation. My bias is that we spread money out to innovative programs. We have several big buckets in terms of funding, but if we're looking at 80 million, 10% of our funding to one program is a lot. So I think the partial funding for them would be a good mix between getting our money into more regions of the state and more programs and diversifying our funds, but also partially funding what is a very worthy product and was scored highly by all 3 grant scorers. So I would argue for the option that leaves out Meharry full funding, and then we come back and use some of that unallocated funding or all of it to fund this project, which appears to be very worthy. That's a lot of money in one bucket.
Thanks, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Fournette.
and do it on the floor, and come back and if any of the funding can look at, have a lot of, again.
Thanks, Dr. Fournette. Anybody else? All right, I'll give my opinion. We talked about process since we started this thing. We have one of the highest scores up there sitting at the very top. And I have no doubt that our state colleagues are doing the best that they can with what they've been given. I know all of them and I know how hard they work and I love all of them. But the truth is that we are what our record says we are. And our record says we're the second worst overdose state in the country right now. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And I love Tommy Farmer and he knows that. But if we apply that same criteria, there's grant source funding that comes from multiple other places for projects that we're talking about right now. So much so that we actually ask in our grant process, what other sources of funding are you looking at for that? And so this program is statewide. It has a media component attached to it. It doesn't do you any good to have Narcan, or it doesn't do you a lot of good to have overdose reversal drugs in places that people don't realize it's there. And there has to be a media component that goes along with that. And then, that's just my feeling. We've got one of the highest scores sitting right at the top of our list right now. And I appreciate what Dr. Jackson says. We can come back and fund that. We can fund it at whatever level we choose, but we could also fund some other things and not fund it based on the discussion that we've already had. So that's my concern with this one going forward. All right. Anybody else?
That's where are we at? Where are we with math at this point? I mean, we're talking about the unappropriated monies. With 3.8, is that what I'm?
No, 3.297 million that is available based on this council's vote from the research category that can be allocated to any of the strategies.
So that's the loose money right now, for lack of a better word.
That's right.
And that's liable to increase as we go forward here.
Well, I mean, I guess theoretically it could. I don't know that we didn't have another strategy that did not have allocated funding. So generally what would happen in there is if you had a problem with one of those, you would move to the next highest scoring within that category.
So pretty sure that's going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If I might, based on the Tommy's motion, that's just freed up an additional $7.5 million.
It hasn't, because the allocation, 7.5 is distributed to
No,
the.
that in your motion?
Okay. Right. So,
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
yep. I'm sorry, Mr. Buckle.
No, those are not included in option 2. The only applications that are included in option 2 are in the peach or the pink color. Yes.
And Sejal just handed me a note and I'm scared to death that I can't explain it. So Sejal, would you explain that?
I want to make a note. Yeah, for 7.5 million. So if it was funded, that would open up 7.5 million for years 2 and 3. Bring that to attention.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Jackson.
I understand we've been discussing these beach slates on block
Mhm.
and on block as a block. Well, I don't think we're locked into that. If we took this
297.
3.3 billion. What if we knocked out line 57? Which is 1.7 million, and we put 3.3 and 1.7 together, that gives 5 million for the RISE project that we can fund. So that gets them up to 2/3 of what they asked for.
Well, I'm not the arbiter of this motion. My friend and colleague. Right.
There's no motion.
Right. No,
Yeah, there
no,
is-
we have a motion.
There is a motion.
No, pardon me.
I'm so sorry, sir.
Excuse me. So we do have a motion on the floor by Tommy Farmer to go with option 2, has been seconded by Sheriff Cox. We have had discussion around it. What you would be putting forward, Clay, would be an amendment to Mr. Farmer's motion. I have it, if that's okay. So I'm making a lot of assumptions here, which makes me extremely nervous. But we currently have 3.297 million unallocated from the research category. If my eyes serve me, that is 1.6 there, which puts us at 4.8 million, which is really close to the 5, which was the Meharry Rise project's second number from previous discussion.
And Sage, can you check the math?
Actually, please look at column P for year one funding. So the Meharry Rise project is confusing because it's just a 1-year project, but the 1.697 for line 57 is actually the total funding for all 3 years. So it'd actually be only 566,000.
Okay.
566, 566.
Which would put that at 3.7 million rather than 5. Thank you, Sage.
Two other, Harry grants. I can't read them.
Yeah, can somebody with eyesight read those?
So the first one is helping our people effectively, or HOPE Mobile Expansion Grant. So one is Mobile Expansion Grant, and then helping our people effectively West Mobile Clinic. So they look like two mobile
And
treatments.
the amounts.
Total funding requested for line 44 over 3 years is 1.8. And the total funding requested over 3 years for the next one is 2.1.
So 1.3 million times 3 years, correct?
That's the
Close.
total. For
Right,
3 years.
right.
So-
For both of those. Mhm.
Yes.
Right.
So two programs, one in Middle Tennessee and one in West.
And the second is.
2.1, that's right.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think Councilmember Swan, motion needs to be addressed, whether he would accept amendments or not. And Tommy, I just say, in general, do you want your motion voted up or down, or would you accept an amendment that we can knock off different line items? Because once we open that door, we could knock off whichever line items we wanted. So would you accept an amendment, or do you want to vote this up or down?
I would vote it up and down.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, General Flynn. So we would be voting en bloc on option 2 without line item, and I'm so sorry, guys,
48
48 and
52.
52.
But if we vote no on this, we're not defunding these people. We'll just go back to this category.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's tossed in a different way, right? We're not, if we vote no on this motion, we're not voting no on all this funding, right?
No.
We'll go back to this and we'll fund some money in this category another way.
We will. And Mr. Farmer,
Okay.
for another category.
Something in this category.
Yeah.
That's not what I understand. Option 2 is this fully funds option 2, is this option here. So funding that's allocated for option 2 would be what is on the table to be voted. The 3.297 billion is not in this.
No, that's not what he's saying. We are going to, Mr. Farmer, we are going to vote on this block right here in a second with the exclusion of our 2 conflicts of interest. The 2 conflicts of interest, as we have done in the other categories, we'll have to address individually. No, we're going to vote on yours right now. You bet. For once in my life, I understand a tad bit of this. We are going to have to spend money in this category. Yes, yes, Dr. Jackson. All right, any more discussion? Yes, ma'am.
part of these MAT, be working with my area on MAT. You provide marketing. That's what I was thinking. We're calling it Narcan. That's what we provide. It's trying to use the appropriate name that you used, Dr. Lloyd. But just so everybody's aware, we actually also fund Narcan distribution across the state. In addition to whatever you guys agree, approve within both, just point clarification on that, sir.
Thanks, Commissioner. And again, like I did with Mr. Farmer, my colleagues that I worked with at the department, I told you I love them very much. In all fairness, they also fund housing, they also fund treatment, they also fund every other category that we're talking about here. So I appreciate that. I appreciate getting everything out in the open, but our colleagues at the state allocate dollars that which they have for a long time to try to, to best help folks. So it's actually not just singling out this category, it's all categories. So anybody else? All right, hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Okay, so we're doing a vote on this option number 2 without lines 48 and 52. That's
Yes.
correct? Okay. Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
Yes.
got it. Casey Cox,
Yes.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
No.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
No.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
No.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
No.
Tim Fournette,
Yeah.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff. Okay, and now we need to do the vote.
All right,
with-
motion carries. Option 2 carries with the exception of our 2 conflicts of interest, which we'll now address.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Shelton. We'll need a
Oh,
motion.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. You get caught up in the excitement. I never do that. So line item
48 and 52.
how many more times they were going to prove I can't see? 47 or 48?
48.
Okay, line item 48, which Mr. Buck has a conflict. I'll need a motion. I'll need a motion.
Yeah, they're both Brian's.
We can?
Yeah.
We can. Okay, so I have a motion from General Flynn, sorry, General, to approve line items 48 and 52. I got a second from Dr. Fournette. Any discussion? All right, can we proceed with a roll call vote?
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox,
Yeah.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn,
Yeah.
Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. Congratulations to our awardees in the harm reduction category. So going forward, we have 3.297 still there, and we fully funded option 2 as presented. Thank you all. All right, and I'm not sure, Ella, I lost track. Is primary prevention next or?
Oh, we've got primary prevention. Oh, go ahead. What? Recovery support, primary prevention and treatment
Okay,
left.
so let's go with recovery support.
Why was it?
But I wasn't, I just picked one. So we go to primary prevention. I'm good with it.
Is that showing all of the pink? Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we this slate of funding, with the exception of line 7, line 8, line 12, line 15, 16, line 16, line 18, line 19, line 25,
26.
and line
Oh,
29.
29, sorry,
Yeah.
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 And the last one was line 29.
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to accept the current strategy with the exceptions of line 7, 8, 12, 16, 18, 19, 25, and 29. I have a motion by Dr. Jackson. I have a second by Dr. Moore. Any discussion?
Just please check the numbers.
Yeah.
Millions
Yeah.
of dollars.
We
We need somebody younger than 50 to look up there. Yes,
Could you pat me on number 17?
we,
Extremely close.
all right, thanks, Sheriff Cox. So we're going to add Sheriff Casey Cox to conflicts of interest on 17, which would make our new list inclusive of everything excluding line 7, 8, 12, 15, 17, 18, 19, 25, and 29.
Mr. Farmer.
Mr. Farmer.
28 to 31.
Doesn't have a conflict in 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, I have 16 on my tablet, Dr. Vanderpool, and I read it as 15, which is logical. Yes, thank you. All right, any other conflicts, and I'll restate the motion when we get them all up there. Okay, the motion on the floor from Dr. Jackson is the strategy as presented with the exceptions of line 7, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 25, 29, and 31. And that motion has been seconded by Dr. Moore.
How are you? Good, how are you? Good. I'm on a call. So give me a second. I'm listening.
Number 8. Okay, the good news is, Mr. Farmer, we do not have to restate the motion on that one. We can just, we already have a conflict on number 8. Well, we can add another one. So you, General Allen and Karen are in cahoots on number 8. All right. All right, we got a motion and a second. Anybody else? Conflicts. All right, any discussion? All right, we can proceed with a roll call vote.
Armando Fontes.
Yes.
He said, yeah, I had to turn it down because of background noise. Brian Buck.
Yes.
Casey Cox.
Yes.
Sharm Allen. Clay Jackson.
Yeah.
Karen Pershing. Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton. Mike Flynn. Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool. Steve Lloyd.
Abstain.
Tim Fournette. Tommy Farmer. Wayne Wyckoff.
All right, the motion carries. We'll have to entertain a motion on each of these individually. So we'll start with line item 7.
Sake, I believe that we could vote on 7 and 19.
Is she, again, I can't see, is she the only one on 7 and 19?
That's right.
All right, so we can, I agree, anything that shortens this. Would you like to make a motion? Have a motion on the floor of Dr. Jackson to accept for funding line items 7 and 19. A second? The second by General Allen. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes.
Yes.
Brian Buck.
Yes.
Casey Cox.
Yes.
Sharm Allen. Clay Jackson.
Yes.
Karen Pershing. Ken Moore.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton. Mike Flynn. Shane Sexton.
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool. Steve Lloyd.
Abstain.
Tim Fournette.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer.
Yes.
Wayne Wyckoff.
All right, motion carries. line item 8. And matter of fact, is anybody eyeballed that to see if we have that same situation anywhere else?
We do.
Yep.
So I- So I moved that we fund line items 16, 18, and 29. 25.
What's funny?
25 has 2.
And 29 at this time, that would only exclude a representative.
So that's 16, 18, and 29.
Correct.
It is. So I have a motion on the floor to accept lines 16, 18, and 29 by Dr. Jackson, a second by Dr. Fournette. Oh, I'm sorry. I heard it from the left side. Sheriff Cox with the second. Any discussion? Are we going to proceed with the roll call vote?
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Ron Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. Have we exhausted that list of categories that we combine? I think we have. Right? Anybody else hearing that? All right, good. I just want to make sure. I gotta check myself every now and then. All right, I'll entertain a motion for line item 8. I have a move for approval from Dr. Moore. Do I have a second? Second from Judge Sexton. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Ron Buck.
Yeah.
Casey Cox.
Yeah.
Sharm Allen. Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for line item 12. I have a motion by Dr. Vanterpool. Do I have a second? I have a second from Dr. Fournette. Any discussion? Proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Ron Buck.
Yeah.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen. I'm sorry,
It's okay.
it's too far
I know.
over.
You're doing well.
Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton, Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. I will entertain a motion for line item 17. I have a move for approval. I'm sorry, motion by Dr. Fournette and a second by Dr. Jackson. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. My peripheral visions. Well, you guys look a lot alike. So I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for line item 25. I have a motion by Sheriff Cox. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Farmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Ron Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. Entertain a motion for line item 31. A motion by Dr. Moore. A second. Second by Mr. Wykoff. I'm sorry, General, he beat you to the punch. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Ron Buck,
Yeah.
Casey Cox,
Yeah.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. Thank you all. Congratulations to our awardees. Stella, coming down the list, I guess the next is recovery support.
Yes.
Very slowly as we can. I'm going to stay anyway, but Middle Tennessee State University, line item 19. You can pull out individually.
That's also Middle Tennessee State University.
It is, and line item 11, coming stuff transport. And line item 14.
Mr. Chairman, you calling out your COIs?
I am, that's why I'm looking at it.
I got you. Okay.
You need to-
I'm local home ministry, long-term medical director, so I could probably pull out that.
That one on 11 needs to be Lloyd, not cancer.
Yes. Although I appreciate it. Thanks, sir. And then that topic is someone else can add. Thank you.
And there's 19 also, Ellen.
Yes, 19.
Steve.
Middle Tennessee State, both of them with Middle Tennessee State and then the Oklahoma ministry. Dr. Jackson, I think I'm the solo on several of those. If you want to mush them.
Everything was.
And thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve display.
Did you say welcome diminish?
Oh, yeah.
Line items.
Ella, line 14, Steve Lloyd.
Section line items 11, 14, and 19.
But are we doing?
Scroll down.
Exclude all the comments.
Yeah.
So we gotta go from the top to the bottom, and you can add the comment. It's been approved slate.
Thank you. So anything.
Yeah.
I move that we accept the slate with the exception of line items 8, 11,
12.
12, 14, 19, 20, 27, 28. Period.
And I have the conflict on line 8. I'm not sure if Dr. Lloyd. That one, to go back up.
I think you're on there, but no, you're not.
Please, I think she changed. Steve Lloyd's, put him on his screen.
Thanks, Mike. That is correct. I do not have a conflict with Helen Ross McNabb. I appreciate that, General. Thank you.
Motion not changed.
Absolutely. So the motion on the floor is to accept the strategy as presented, with the exception of line items 8, 11, 12, 14, 19, 20, 27, and 28. If that's correct, I'll need a second. I had a second from Sheriff Cox. Any discussion? We'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck.
Yeah.
Casey Cox. Sharm Allen. I did not hear Sharm. It should not.
Eight is not in this, General.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
The slate minus the conflicts of interest.
Recovery Support.
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you all. We'll go back individually. Is there any of them that we can, I think I'm the lone soldier on 3 of those. Got to get a motion on the floor to approve line items 11, 14, and 19. I have a second by Dr. Vanderpool. Any discussion? We'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. Entertain a motion for line item 8. I have a motion to approve by Judge Sexton. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second. Second was Sheriff Cox. Any discussion? Proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yeah.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton, Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. I'll entertain a motion on line item 12. I have a motion by Mr. Farmer. Do I have a second? A second by General Allen. Any discussion? All right, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yeah.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
Motion carries. Entertain a motion for line item 20. I have a motion by Sheriff Cox. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Fournette. Any discussion? Proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. Entertain a motion for line item 27. Motion by Dr. Vanderpool. Do I have a second? Second by General Allen. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. And last but not least, I'll entertain a motion for line item, can't read my handwriting, 29.
Is it
I'm sorry.
28?
28.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for line item 28. So we got a motion by Sheriff Cox. Do I have a second? A second by Mr. Wykoff. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries.
It seems like somebody in the room has a microphone on. They're logged into the Teams. If y'all could just check if anybody's logged in to turn off your microphone. Thank you. Okay, I think it went away. Thank you. Okay.
No, I was making sure it wasn't me. Again, congratulations to our awardees. And I think this is I'm sorry, Dr. Vanderpool.
I just want to make sure that we're approving the 3 years worth of funding, even if there's a typo on the form that says 1 year.
Yep. Can we go back to primary prevention? Did you see it up there, Dr. Vanderpool?
Yeah. And I think there are a few others that have that same thing.
We'll confirm that. And in Smart Simple, some of the applicants with the budget did not include, they would roll all 3 years into 1 year. Some of it when it transferred over right now. So we'll confirm that one.
So so to confirm, I think this is important for us to clarify, is the point that it's 3 years worth of budget for reflected and the ability to achieve the 3 years worth of budget. That we're not gonna just do 1 year because it says 1 year duration on the application. If we voted as a council to approve 3 years.
All right, and I don't know if we need to make that correction on this slide prior to it, or we could do it after the.
Well, we've already voted on primary prevention. If it's up to me, I'd like to make the correction right now because I will sleep in between then and now. And so,
Look it up.
okay.
There's one listed, but there are 3 years worth of funding. If it, I'm going to abstain from this vote, but I just wanted to draw the attention out that the intention was for the programs to be the 3 year duration.
Well, that was recognition, and when the budget was approved, it was at the 1, 2, and 3 years, well, to make sure that they had the rolling dollars.
So if you allow me a little latitude here, we're well ahead of schedule. And so I'd like to take a 10-minute break. Let's get that sorted out. And then me back here in 10 minutes. And for any judges in the room, that's 10 minutes on the clock, on the actual clock. So we stand a break for 10 minutes. All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene the March 18th meeting of the Tennessee Opioid Abatement Council. You're good. We got a plan, Sajal. So we're gonna let, Sajal finish the work that needs to be done. We'll come back and address the issue that, luckily Dr. Vanderpool, identified, because we want to make sure we get that on the record before we leave here. So we're gonna move on and we will revisit that when Sajal is ready. So our next category.
Sorry, are y'all using the computer?
Oh.
Okay,
All right. So best laid plans. Okay, all right.
let me see.
So we did have a good plan there, except for we only have one computer that projects up there, so they'll have to address that. So Mary, we've got a couple of things we could probably jump down and address while they're doing that, if you'd like.
That's true.
Mhm.
Let me, um, I want to be able to project up there, so I'm going to bring my computer up there. You mean to move on to the vendor meeting and the Hoover?
That's what I was gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just, if it was okay, since we are ahead of time, I was gonna jump down to request a meeting.
Oh,
Oh, okay. All right, to heck with all that then. Yeah, let's go ahead and finish that up and then we'll come back. So treatment is the last of our strategies. And if it's okay, I'm gonna do what I did last time, guys. You know, who the 21st district judge is out there? Judge Johnson. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll save us some time. I didn't have any on that one. I don't know.
I believe those are the ones that were cleaned up with the 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Is that right, Sage?
And when we get done with this category, Sheriff, we're going to go back and address those in toto. And we want it read into the record with a vote because we want to make sure that we're clear and we don't have, a 1 when it should be a 3 or a 3 when it should be a 1. So the dark ones are that. So I did not know that.
Does not impact the funding. In Smart Simple, there were some challenges with some applicants putting in a 3-year budget separately. We rolled into one, so that 1, 2, 3 came straight out of Smart Simple reports. But we have our grants analyst verified the 3 years and actually roll that out for this document. Separated that out.
That answer your question, Tom? Okay. Okay, line item 27, please add Sheriff Cox. And I'm sorry, guys, as has been the tradition of this entire meeting, I'm gonna need somebody to read them numbers out because I can't see them. Yes. Dr. Jackson.
Move that we fund all of the discolored items with the exception of line item 7, 9, 11, 12, 17, 18, 19, 27, 32, 36. Period.
Sorry. All right, so I've got a motion on the floor from Dr. Jackson that we fund the strategy in total with the exceptions of line items 7, 9, 11, 12, 17, 18, 19, 27, 32, and 36. Is that, are my numbers correct?
That's what I.
They are correct according to Mary, and she's always right. I have a second from Dr. Moore. Any discussion?
This motion was brought to you by one.
It's not helping me very much right now. I've got a motion on the floor and a second. No discussion, hearing none. I will proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck.
Yes.
Casey Cox,
Yes.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing.
Yeah.
Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. Are there any up there that have the same person for multiples and that's the only one? But he's got somebody else with him and it's a different person on each one of them, correct? Okay, can vote on 9 and 11? Okay, so do I have a motion for 9 and 11? I got a motion by Dr. Fournette to approve line items 9 and 11, a second from Sheriff Cox. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox,
Yes.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton,
Yeah.
Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yeah.
Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. I have a motion for line item 7. Okay. Is that a motion, Dr. Jackson?
Move we fund that line out at 7, 12, and 32.
Got a motion to fund line items 7, 12, and 32. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Farmer. Any discussion? Absolutely. You good with that, Dr. Fournette? Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, the motion carries. I entertain a motion for line item 17. A motion by Judge Sexton. Do I have a second? Second by General Allen. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
Yeah.
Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. Entertain a motion for line item 18. Okay, entertain a motion for line items 18 and 36. Okay, motion by Dr. Jackson to do so. Do I have a second? Second by Karen Pershing. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson, Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool. Did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. I will entertain a motion for line item 19. Okay, a motion by Dr. Moore. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Wykoff. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson, Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. And last but not least, I'll entertain a motion for line item 27. I have a motion put forth by Dr. Moore. Do I have a second? Second by Judge Sexton. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yeah.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. Congratulations to our awardees. Do good with that money. All right, let's go back and we have, I guess on a gift card, we have 3.297 million left over from research. That's on the screen. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Jim.
Yeah, that was the first
First
one.
one. We will cut you some slack, General Allen. Yes. It does seem like it was yesterday, but I agree. All right, so the request is, Ella, if we can put under unfunded, put the Meharry Rise project and it where it would fit with its appropriate score.
Need to add a line. I think you have to clear out the copy.
I'm afraid if I keep watching this, I'm gonna have a seizure. So I'm gonna turn around.
I need to unlock it.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Review.
it's locked.
Go to view.
So.
Pressure.
So.
There's an unprotect sheet.
Unproductive.
There you go. That should.
All right, Dr. Vanderpool and Clay, is that right? Now, is it correct?
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Vanderpool. All right, so I think we have our top unfunded, regardless of category, regardless of anything other than score, on the big board. And we have $3.297 million. Okay, the category is actually, Tommy, the fourth one over, average score organization program strategy. So those are all recovery support. Then Meharry's project is harm reduction, and the last two are treatment.
Hey, Mary, don't we have 3.7 million where we took out that other? It's been a while back. We took out one more besides the one.
Hang on one second. Is that
Armando.
Armando? I'll get you. Hang on one second. I heard you. Nobody else could, so they were talking over you. So hold that thought. Let me get Dr. Vanderpool or where she needs to be, and then we'll come to you. Dr. Vanderpool.
Okay.
Right. All right. So Armando, we in the strategies right now, we have the Meharry Rise project is harm reduction, but it's coupled with treatment. So we're going to give it its own category. That's real, but it doesn't change anything else other than its own category. And you have the floor.
I was saying, I know you mentioned we had 3.29 million. I thought we had 3.7 million after did we take out another? I forget which line item it was.
We did not, Armando. That was a suggestion. And at the time, if my memory serves me correct, we were looking at the total 3-year allocation of being 1.6 when in reality, this is a 1-year proposal. And it was way less than that. So we accepted that strategy in toto. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Armando. All right. So back to the business at hand.
Oh my God, just copy and paste.
So I have a motion on the floor to reallocate the 3.297 million that was left over from research to the highest score of the remaining unfunded projects, regardless of category, which would be to allocate it to the Meharry Medical College RISE project. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Wyckoff. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we proceed? Yes, General, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's only five.
But point taken, right? Yeah, point taken.
We changed it. We'd be changing it from 10 to 15%. I mean, ballpark, we'll see what the spreadsheet is. But it won't be 10 to 20 because we can't not fund it.
Thanks, General Allen. Dr. Fournette.
Mentioned they could work with 5 million. Now, if we give them 3.2, can even do the project? We allocated them, give them up, and then it's gone.
Right.
Can they even do the project?
Well, I mean, it's gone. They can't, take off to Puerto Rico, but my understanding with this and how my experience with grants have been, and I've got plenty of people in the room that can correct me, is if they can't, then the money would come back here. We can't do it for that. Then that would be an instance where I would probably call a meeting, for us to do over Zoom and reallocate that money. I'm trying to read. Okay. So I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead. Ms. Tipton.
The money, are there any areas, maybe one, one.
Water's gonna be more than
Even if
2
the county
million.
would reflect it.
Davidson would be 1 million.
If there wasn't any recovery, or what is much in middle, if there isn't any, or if there wasn't as much treatment. I can't really do with that. Line 16 is. It doesn't have the region. I don't know if that means it's statewide or not, but I should also suggest that as well. If we're looking at that money, where are the gaps? Where we might be that,
God,
the first $5 million.
probably 3 million?
Ms. Tipton,
Statewide project.
yeah, I do agree. It's,
Rise is state.
yeah, RISE is a statewide project, but I mean, I think Lisa's point is a good one. Can we take line 6? Because I know we have a category in there for it. I think it's, what, can you tell us what that one is, Lisa? It is a statewide project, and $3.2 million is a lot of money. While we're waiting on that, I thought I saw somebody over here on my left. General, did I see you? Was it you? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Mike? So the other two projects were 1.6 combined over 3 years. And then, plus whatever this would be at another 3.2. So 4.8 million.
Is has multiple projects. I don't think, I want to make sure that we don't inadvertently penalize them for having a lot of irons in the fire if they can successfully account for one. Full disclosure, University of Norfolk have multiple projects that's been accepted or approved for likely a higher dollar amount than Mahari's applications. And every one of those projects is a good project that the council's voted on and approved. So I don't know if the number of projects that an organization has is as much of a consideration in terms of total funding received by that organization, as long as each individual project has received the appropriate scoring and has been voted on by the council.
Thank you, Dr. Vanderpool. Fair
But
point.
we haven't scored.
Yeah.
Hasn't been scored because
It's been scored.
not what this motion, not been.
It's been-
What they can do.
It's been, well, agreed. Thank you.
Been scored
Thanks for the
$7.5
Yeah,
billion.
Wow.
That's a good
Shelby.
point.
yeah.
So the discussion here was that this particular project has not been scored. It has been scored at the original budget, but to General Flynn's point, not to the $3.2 million budget, which is fair. But also, also look at Dr. Vanderpool's point, we have multiple places up here that we have funded for multiple projects. For me, I'm just personally, looking at the quality of the project, and then East, Middle, West, small, medium, large. I mean, that was our criteria. We didn't have a criteria at first that said we're only going to fund, X amount of projects for each person. So I do think that that's a legitimate point, at least for me. Anybody else?
There was a packet, in one of our packets, there was a distribution as far as, funding the various healthcare systems, Vanderbilt, UT, so on and so forth. The highest recipient was MTSU. And then second would have been Harry, with current, if you take the $7.5 million off, they're just right.
Right. I think that, yeah, and I appreciate that, Dr. Moore. We want quality organizations doing quality work, no matter how many of them there are. I mean, at least in my mind. Lisa, did I see you again? Okay, well, I'm reading you hadn't disappeared. Well, I'm reading faces again. Anybody else? Tommy?
Be a very critical category, one, and two, the number of programs that we could potentially support in that. Would be significant.
Right.
It's
And I appreciate it, Tommy. I mean, it goes back to economics class, right? Opportunity cost. What's the cost of the next best option? And I think that's fair. We do have a motion on the floor in a second, and if we reject it, then we can go that route. And we need to address this motion when it's time. Anybody else? Any further?
In my mind, and cost of the distribution was going to remain the same, and the volume of distribution of Narcan was going to decrease. So I would be curious as to what 3.2 million would do, how that would impact the volume of Narcan they were originally proposing to provide.
Thanks, Mr. Buck. Dr. Jackson.
We've got up and down Dr. Moore's motion. We're fixing to take a vote. If we voted no, we could, if we vote yes, it's done. If we vote no, the other path before us is allocate these funds today to another program that's on this list. Or we could say, Barry's got a great project, but we're uncertain what they can do with 3.3 million. We can say, we'll give you all 2 weeks to tell us what you can do. And we have an emergency meeting to vote again.
And I thanks, Dr. Jackson. And I think that's at the discretion of, the 15 people in this room or 14 in the room and one on the computer.
I'm not saying what we should do one way or the other. It is a possibility. I'm kind of in the mood to get all the money out the door that's on the budget today that we can, because, and I don't want to sound cavalier about it. There's been a lot of careful discussion that's gone into these. People have spent hours and hours and hours combing through these applications and scoring. I take the point, Tommy. Again, I'm a small cap guy. I'm a rural guy. I'm a diversity guy. I also just see a significant gap in scores. The rest of these scores grew from 79 to 82. But then, just looking at the curve, Harry jumps off the page with, it's one of the highest scoring projects that we had the whole application process. So, that's just my say, we got to vote it up or down. If it is voted down, then we could either reallocate or we could go to Harry and say, what can you do for this money?
Absolutely.
And look at that.
Absolutely. And I have a good friend sitting in this room that tells me trust the process, which is what I do. So, we got 15 heads here and we'll vote up or down. And then if it goes up, then we know what we're doing. If it goes down, then we'll look at our options. Any more discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed with roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. I was hoping that we would get through that without me having to do this. So, actually, if Dr. Moore made the motion, then he can restate it. That's okay. Clay usually is pretty, anal and writes all that down.
My motion was that the unallocated funds that we discussed from the research project be allocated to the highest scoring project in the unallocated funding list. That project being the Meharry Rise project and the 3.297 million.
Hey, okay, I apologize. I'm about to throw a monkey wrench in here, but I just remembered something. We had a project that we skipped in education and training. That was a $1 million project because it did not hit the dollar amount. And that should be included on this calculation. I don't know what the score of it was, but y'all remember the one we?
I do.
I do.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to include it when we're considering.
And that was oversight on my part.
Line 19.
Yeah, and I mean, the score is where the score is, and the dollar amount is higher than the amount we have available.
It is.
But I think we should, if Meharry's number is also higher than the dollar amount we have available.
Fair is fair. Good.
We
Yep.
should put it on.
Now we'll see if Ella remembers how to do all that. No pressure, Ella, at all. Thanks, Dr. Vanderpool.
No, you don't have to do all of them, just the first one. I want to say, and this, that we need to do is that when we did not fund the year one request of Tennessee Oncology, we also did not include the subsequent $3.8 million a year in the follow-up funds, and that may throw off our ability to fund additional projects. I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledged it. If we know that it is going to disrupt the budget of everything we've already approved, can disregard, but I just wanted to make sure that if we had something that was unallocated, that it was considered.
You know, I looked up there and at the description and I mean, it's a really good thing, right? I mean, we do have to take that into consideration and I appreciate it being on there. Within the stated motion that's on the floor, it would not affect Dr. Moore's motion. His motion was to take the highest non-funded score. So the motion and the second are still on the floor. And then if we reject it, then we can come back and revisit it. Thank you, Dr. Vanderpool. Any further discussion?
Reiterate. Thinking about this, the oncologist application, that my area stands far above the rest of the unallocated scores in terms of the quality of the program. With
Thanks, Dr. Jackson.
due consideration of what Flynn brought up, that, yeah, the score to reduce.
Well, that's why this council's not one, right? So it's all good. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
No.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yeah.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yeah.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain.
Tim Fournette,
No.
Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wyckoff.
Motion fails. All right, floor is open for any other motions. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to move the remaining $3.297 million to recovery support. I have a second by Sheriff Cox. So let's look at this, if that's okay from, at least I want to. What does that affect our list there, starting from the top down with 81.72 Buffalo Valley would be the next highest? Yes. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I'm having trouble understanding that one, Dr. Vanderpool, because I look out there. Mhm. I see, I hear you. So fund all of them. That's right. It is. I understand what you're talking about. Yes, Ms. Tipton.
Pretty much some of these other things, I really feel like with the general intent of our first earlier discussion and where we said we were going to put the most money to in recovery support and to fund that project in its entirety with some of our values that we established earlier.
It's apples to apples, oranges to oranges. The way we've been counting how much money we have, is that year one or the totality of the project? Because what I'm wondering, I mean, with what we have on our credit card right now, or debit card, my question is, can we only fund Buffalo Valley and stay in the black? Or can we fund all of recovery support?
I'm going to go to my offensive coordinator, Sage.
Excellent question. Column P is the year one. So
Yes.
the budget that was approved, the 81 million is year one. So
Okay.
it would allow the We did fund 5 projects
Okay.
back.
All right.
So let me make sure I understand it. If we move forward with Tommy's motion, that's been seconded by the sheriff, we would fund year one of those on the board for a total of 3.154, which would leave us roughly, what, $100,000. Is that correct? Okay. Any other discussion? Everybody understand?
That would be just funding for 1 year.
Yeah, yes, the question is from Armando, who's kind of like this voice out there in the dark. I'm kidding, Armando. I know you are. So his question is, it's funding for year one. And Armando, yeah, the answer to that question, Sejal answered is yes.
Okay,
Thanks, Armando.
thanks.
All right, hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck.
Yes.
Casey Cox.
Yes.
Shar Mallon, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Abstain?
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer, Wayne Wyckoff.
Motion carries. All right, guys, congratulations to our additional grantees and people that receive grants today, go do some good with it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
will. I just wanted to exhale for a second, if that's okay. We're pretty happy that of what's transpired here today. All right,
So we're
go
gonna,
back.
yeah, clean up the 1 year, 2 year.
No, I
3 year.
can't forget that, Stephanie. That would not be good. Thank you.
Are there any conflicts, on any of those projects?
Well, that's a good thing. All right, we can go back and look. I didn't have any. Ella, I'm sorry. Can you go back to the list that we just approved? We want to double check ourselves. It's a great point. We slide all the way over and see if we have any
The
conflicts.
conflicts that were not there, did not.
Part time. Here we go. Scroll down to the first whites. Yep. A little more.
Yeah. So, and I would have been the most likely one probably, and I don't have any conflicts with any of those.
Were those put, did we add those?
Well, we'll eyeball them here.
Can we eyeball them?
They did not add the conflicts on this one, so let's scroll back there and just to make sure. And everybody eyeball those projects and make sure you don't have a conflict.
So can y'all read those? Can you make column C, expand column C? Okay, nobody is.
Okay, speak now. So we don't have any acknowledged conflicts on any of the ones that we added. Thank you all for looking at that. Now can we go back, Ellen? Let's address our 1 and 3 year issues so we can get that into the record.
Okay, it looks like there's 2 under primary prevention.
So are these the only 2 we have overall? Okay. Okay. Okay, is there any way to address these all at once, or do we need to go through them by strategy? Okay.
Y'all are sitting down here, y'all like people, huh?
Mhm.
I want to call them all out. I can obtain from those that.
Okay, I agree with that because we're gonna have to pull Stephanie out anyway on extension. There's no way I can read them. So if somebody wants to formulate a motion that can read them, we will take action on the ones that involve Dr. Vanterpool as a conflict. We'll vote on that and then we'll go back as a group and vote on the ones that do not involve Stephanie as a conflict. Yes.
It has come to the attention of the council that on the spreadsheet inadvertently, there was a column on the spreadsheet, it's column O, that listed the years of funding. On some of our funded projects, the funding was listed as 1 year, but there was a budget for 3 years.
Yes.
So for a point of clarification, I would like it read in the record, and I make a motion if we do so, that those projects that were funded with a budget for 3 years be acknowledged qualitatively as 3-year projects. Those projects are as follows. Under primary prevention, University Health System, University of Tennessee Medical Center, Knoxville, developmental follow-up and clinic for opioid exposed neonates. Number 2, University Health System, transitional pain service. Under recovery support, University Health System, a continuum-based approach, prenatal postpartum care of opioid exposed pregnancies. Under treatment, University Health System, University of Tennessee Medical Center, bridge to recovery, a comprehensive continuum of care. Period.
Should we also want to include Putnam County and then we can just, I don't know, or I guess we have.
No, but that is a franchise case.
Yes.
I don't disenfranchise sheriffs as principal.
Actually, we have a motion on the floor by Dr. Jackson. I have a second by Dr. Fournette. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox,
Yes.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yes.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer,
Yes.
Wayne Wykoff.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Jackson.
I would like the same correction that was aforementioned in my previous motion. Be applied to the following project under treatment. in Putnam County. Bridging the gap for opioid healing.
Okay, I got a motion on the floor by Dr. Jackson, a second by Dr. Vanterpool. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck,
Yeah.
Casey Cox, Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yes.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore, Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton,
Yes.
Stephanie Vanterpool, Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette, Tommy Farmer,
Yeah.
Wayne Wykoff.
All right, motion carries. And if we go back through this and find any others that fit into that category, this, we'll bring them back. We absolutely need to. I want to make sure it's in the record so we don't get down the road and have, a misunderstanding on it. Absolutely. Thank you all. All right, I think,
Lunch is here. If we can take a really quick break and I've got like 20 more slides.
okay, we do have it. My grandmother says by the rear end on a downhill drag. So we'll take about a 5-minute recess if we can. And use
Hey,
it.
council, lunch is here. Can y'all go in and fix a plate?
All right,
and then-
change that to 10 minutes.
if y'all could fix a plate and then we will go through the rest of the slides.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's on me. I forgot to hit the unmute on the microphone.
It's okay. It only cost me about 300 text messages. We're good. Now, thank you all. Sorry, those of you online, we didn't have our microphones turned on. I think it's fixed now. So you all can probably pause on texting me unless we have something else happen. Thank you all.
I apologize. Yes, let's go back up to right there. Right, yeah, right there. So we're gonna move through these next steps. And one thing that I said that this isn't linear. We're gonna be moving down a multiple lane highway. I think we're saying a California freeway. Thank you, Sage, for, giving us that visual, but this is what we're going to be working on to get these grants moving out the door. Next slide. We do anticipate requesting a meeting within the next 30 days, and I will work with the chair on that. We are targeting July of this year to get the first payments out to the grantees. This is definitely dependent upon completing all the required contracting and fiscal steps. No payments will be dispersed to a grantee until the agency contract is signed and executed. Cool. All right. Any questions from the council on those next steps? So we will be in touch. Okay, I have 2 items that I'm bringing from me for y'all's consideration. So first is a vendor meeting request with me. Outside companies and vendors request individual meetings with the executive director on a frequent and regular basis. The executive director is currently not accepting any meetings as the OAC is in an open procurement phase, but as y'all know, this is coming to an end as y'all just have voted on these applications. So at this point, I'm seeking guidance from the council. A couple of questions to consider. Does the Opioid Abatement Council wish for the executive director to meet with outside parties and/or vendors? And if so, something to consider, what value or output does the council wish to gain from these meetings with the outside parties or vendors? Just leave it right there for a second. The next slide is the motion, but this is, if I'm happy, y'all know I like to meet with people, I like to talk with people, but if I'm talking to them, what is it that I'm bringing to the council? What are the next options? And let's see what the next slide is just real quickly. Okay, right. I mean, same. I can meet with them, but then I have information, and then I'm always about, well, I have this information, what am I going to do with it? So I can bring it to the council and share with you that I met with, company A, they have this product they're wanting to receive funding for, or tell you guys about it. But then what are y'all going to do with that information? We have a funding process. Mm-hmm.
But they're not.
That's right.
So it may be that if the vendor is not requesting funding, and they may have a service to offer, that it may be appropriate for you to meet and then present that information to the council. But if they're requesting funding, they need to go through a funding process if they're eligible. They may not even be eligible to request funding.
What's it, for instance?
For instance, I had one company that called me and emailed me. They had a bunch of fentanyl testing strips, and they wanted to bring them to my office, and they wanted to meet with me about these test strips. I think they were looking for funding.
We get these things all the time. Really from about every direction you can think of. And I've gotten a lot better at noticing them before I get too deep into it. They'll even come to my personal email and before I figure it out, and then turn around, and most of the time I just send it to Mary and let her deal with it. Sorry, but that's
No.
that's what we want. We talked about that as a council at the very start. So this happens a lot.
There's also companies that have an algorithm that can show where, predictive modeling for either treatment or knowing where there's going to be more harm within a geography. So it runs the gamut. And some of it's like they're outside of Tennessee and they're wanting to come into the treatment network within Tennessee.
And again, I mean, I'm serious. It's very difficult sometimes because I'll get emails to my personal email that'll actually put appointments on my calendar, and I still have to say yes or no to them. But it's pretty amazing how they get to us.
Mm-hmm.
town area, like we can't work with anybody else. But you're at every conference there is, you speak at most of them. I mean, as a chair,
Mhm.
I think you have your finger on the pulse of how it's going around the country. Mary has consulted with her colleagues across different states and given us comparisons as to what other states are doing. So I wouldn't want to say out of categorically there's been no benefit. I think you're probably pretty busy with what we're asking you to do. And I'd like for you to determine how your time's used, not somebody else because they have something to sell. That's my feeling on it, but
Yeah, and I mean, I agree, and I've talked with a couple of folks about, is there a way to dedicate a day or dedicate, a particular time period where people sign up to talk? But then if I do that, I want to know, what am I going to do with this information? Because I just don't want to hold it in my head, because then I don't know. That doesn't seem right.
Ms. Tippett?
Yeah. If you're not coming to talk to us about the things that we're expressing having a need for, because we have had, kind of like the one in Johnson City, we had people come and basically do a full-on marketing campaign. And honestly, I don't remember what it was for, but I do remember it was a very well done ask. So I think when we get to talking about vendors, some of those people might have been considered a vendor. And here's our list. We're not taking open solicit. I mean, kind of like a lot of the things you speak at, we're not asking for general people. If we want you to come, we've already asked you. I mean, they have that on the bottom. I don't know.
So it sounds like more of a reactive, like if the council has a question about a certain product, treatment, intervention, then you can say, hey, Mary, we're interested in this. Will you post something on the website? I'm looking for companies or agencies that know something about this. Could you please fill out this form? I'm gonna schedule a meeting time later this year.
And I appreciate y'all saying that. I mean, I do this. I mean, this is what my life is, and I love it. And I don't know how many times I've talked to Dr. Moore over the course of this, just about various things, and I'm always somewhere else. But things that I think that you all would be interested in, I'd like the latitude to at least come here and tell you guys, hey, I saw this. Would we be interested in talking about it? Because I told you, I do believe in the process, and I do believe that 15 heads are better than one. And some things you look at and say, yes, we like that. And some things we look at and say, no, we don't like that. That's fine. I'm great with that. But there are some good stuff out there. And I think that we need to have our eyes open around the country at things that maybe are innovative that Tennessee would want to take a look at. And so I don't mind doing that at all. And it's not a lot. I mean, to be honest, look where we are right now. But there are some things out there that I think would benefit us looking at as a group.
She thinks would be good for the council, and also who she should be meeting with without us having to vote and have it codified in the record that no vendors or some vendors. I mean, you're professional. You make your professional judgments.
as far as report out and what the output would be, I mean, a simple 3-sentence deal. I met with ABC
Okay.
about X, Y, Z. No recommendation, just information. Recommend we follow up on this product. Recommend we never talk to these people again. And just yeah, I mean, you need that. But as we meet, if you wanted to report back to us, I guess the governor on your time and keeping your time from being caught up is, if you have to do your book report after every meeting, you'll be pretty judicious in your meetings.
Yeah.
True.
So, I mean, but if you're worried about meeting with somebody and, somebody not knowing, or, the council thinking, why'd you meet with them, whatever. If it's sunshine with us, I met with these 3 persons, entities, organizations since our last deal. I mean, I found it interesting that, the states that you called, and you said, this is how they staff, and this is. That was interesting for me to make sure that we were kind of in the middle of the curve or ahead of the curve in terms of fiscal responsibility is what we're doing with our staffing as we ramped up. So I think that's helpful.
And then, if you come back and say, I met with 17 fentanyl strip people, then we would probably say, well, probably say no to the 18th. I mean, it's, that would keep you out of the loop of having to meet blind.
Mhm.
But I'm, again, they hired you, we voted on you. Seem like a nice person, I think you'd be fit.
Well, he's got some stuff. We can talk about that later, but, that's not true. So, I mean,
I think we trust you.
Okay.
Mary communicates with all of us and so does Sejal and, but I probably communicate with the two of them more than anybody. And I can tell you, I trust them 100%. I take my direction from them just for what that's worth, but I do. And I feel comfortable continue doing that. They hadn't led me wrong yet.
So is this something y'all would like to vote on, or do you want me to take the guidance from Clay and Ken? And are you okay?
Everybody, I mean,
From what everybody has said? Okay. All right.
that's in your job description. I appreciate you being forthright about it,
Yeah.
but,
Well, and Mary's also gotten calls before where she didn't, I'm not sure if we need to look at this, hollered at me, we discussed it and make a decision and move on. And I agree with Judge. I don't think we need a motion here. I'm a nodding head guy and I saw a bunch of nodding heads with that. So I think that's fine. And we'll give Mary the discretion and Sejal.
You want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, Mary, we've talked about it, and I think the one thing I've harped with her on it is making sure you're treating everyone, the same. What that looks like, maybe have a process or policy, something in place so that you can go back to and say, okay, I followed this when I met with this person, or I followed this when I didn't meet with them, just so you have it clear. So I don't know if that's something that necessarily has to be voted on, but if it's something that the policy analyst comes up with, then eventually the council would
Oh, that's true.
need
That's
to
true.
vote on it, but
And we talked about that because we have a policy analyst and I think this would be a good one. So we'll put that on the list.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Okay, so in that vein, there was an agency that reached out to the governor's office. Okay, let's do the next slide. So this is a request from me, and I am seeking approval to engage in discussions with the Hoover Institution to develop a memorandum of understanding for research efforts. So Dr. Blotney, he contacted the Tennessee governor's office, who then contacted me. So I've spoken with him a couple of times. He is from the Hoover Institution at Stanford. And to learn a little bit more about him and his proposed project, I do believe this project will bring value to the community behavioral health providers and to the council in Tennessee. And he submitted a few slides. Next slide. The Stanford Hoover's Institution State and Local Government Initiative. These are the states where they are working in. They have a long tradition of research and policy work that is relevant for policymakers across the country. They propose a memorandum of understanding between the researchers at the Hoover Institution and the Opioid Abatement Council. It'll allow the researchers to work with the council to determine which grants to evaluate and facilitate data sharing agreements for such evaluations. The team lead information is there. Next slide. We believe this partnership will be mutually beneficial. High quality research. Researchers will serve as independent evaluators. It will be free of charge and it will be run through their IRB approval. Next slide. So the Hoover Institution did not submit an application via the community grant application process. As I mentioned, they contacted the governor's office. They're not requesting funding. This is for research on outcomes, and Hoover will work with individual grantees and/or SAS. And SAS is collecting the data, but not doing an evaluation such as this. Yes. That's right. That's right.
And I want to speak to this for just a second. When we first started this, my interest is I look at the ecosystem, the recovery ecosystem as a whole. And I believe personally that there are multiple paths to recovery. I'm the abstinence-based path, and I'm extremely grateful for that today. I've worked in recovery courts, safe baby courts, veterans recovery courts. I mean, if it's a court out there that does this, I've got some experience in it and seen pathways to recovery there. I've worked in jails and prisons, and I've seen pathways to recovery. So I've seen pathways to recovery with MAT, and I've seen MAT go a direction that we don't want it to go. And the truth is there's pluses and minuses to all of them. What I've always been interested in is outcomes. And I'm sorry to get on the treatment world here right now, but if you get out there and you start looking for outcomes, they're hard to come by. And it's not like general medicine. If I have a heart attack, you know, and they open my artery, generally they can tell me my chances of being chest pain free at 2 and 5 years if I do the following things. I want to know what that looks like for recovery. I want to know what the risk factors are and what are the things that set people up for success. And we know comprehensive wraparound programs do a great job because they address social determinants of health. I want to know which patients are better suited for medication than not medication. And I don't think we have the answers to those questions. And I don't think that we're ever going to get there in the treatment world until we have answers to that, because all we have right now is anecdotal. Oh, this patient, that patient. And I love success stories. Believe me, I love them. But I don't think we start moving addiction medicine and what we all love in this room going forward until we start doing things like this and looking at outcomes. And then, you know, if our results are bad, I want to know that so we can shift our focus and try to help more people. So personally, I really like this. I like it from a research standpoint. I like it from a data standpoint, and I really like it from a publishable results standpoint, because SAS is not going to do any of that. They're going to collect the data. We need people who know what they're doing. They're going to be able to analyze this data and publish it in a way that's meaningful to help others. Thank you. And I don't think it costs anything.
That's right. Yes. I mean, that's one thing that we would work in to the MOU, ensure that's in the MOU.
I told you I worked in jails and prisons. I would like to be able to leave at the end of the day. So yes, you know, from the background that we were given, I certainly think that'll be the deal. Yes, so that's the thing we need to know. Is this something that we need a motion for? I actually think it is.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Tippett.
The MOU.
So Lisa, would you like these folks to come and talk to us? Would you like these folks to come and talk to us? I kind of would. You don't want to? Yeah. No, right.
Yeah.
That would still stand, and we have to come back separately to.
Right. I would bring the MOU back to you.
Yeah, I think, you know, me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah,
and
after you.
I mean, I'd like to hear from them. I think I agree with Lisa. I think that, you know, learning about it and developing the MOU are two different things. And so, you know, I would like this body to have a chance to ask them questions. Right? I mean, I think there's things that and I know you all well enough now. I mean, we're going to ask them some questions. That's going to happen. Okay. And so I would rather them be answering it than Sejal and Mary and I sitting here trying to come up with answers that we're not real sure of. So. Just to invite them in to present to us at the next available time, I think would be, I mean, what I'd like to see. That's just me.
Is the motion for the meeting or to allow Mary to engage in this initial?
How about we
It's up
just
to you.
develop a draft and all you. Memorandum of understanding would imply that there is this understanding. If it's a draft MOU, then they will have to draft to
We can make a decision then whether or not we need anything further.
I move that the executive director be authorized by this council to engage the Hoover Institute in exploring collaborative relationship with the council and to develop a draft MOU, which would then be brought back to the council for approval, rejection, discussion.
Got a motion on the floor by Dr. Jackson. I have a second from Dr. Fournette. Any discussion? Keeping with today's tradition, we'll go with a roll call vote.
Armando Fontes,
Yes.
Brian Buck, Casey Cox,
Yes.
Sharm Allen, Clay Jackson,
Yeah.
Karen Pershing, Ken Moore,
Yeah.
Lisa Tipton, Mike Flynn, Shane Sexton, Stephanie Vanderpool, Steve Lloyd,
Yes.
Tim Fournette,
Yes.
Tommy Farmer. Oh, he had to leave. Wayne Wykoff.
Okay, the motion carries. Just FYI, Commissioner Williams and Tommy both had standing things that they had a hard stop, and so they both left. And so I just want to make sure everybody knew where they are. We're now to the last part of our meeting. We have at each Opioid Abatement Council meeting, with regards to what we all learned with the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, we have a period of public comment. For those that wish to make public comment, if you signed in, then we will go down the list here. Just informationally, we don't answer questions. We will listen. If there's anything that we can help you with, we'll help you outside of the meeting, most likely directing you the best place that we know. And we have a lot of members here today who came up, and you can't walk by and not see the faces on their cards. We're now on our Facebook thing up well over 300 people that have sent pictures, but those aren't all here for public comment. So do we have our list?
They don't.
Oh, we
They
didn't have a
don't
list?
sign in.
Okay, don't
Public
sign in.
comment. They raise
So
their
I'm
hand.
going to give you my microphone.
Oh, I've got a place.
You got
I
one
made a
there,
place.
okay. So anybody would like to make public comment?
You have one virtually. We have one person over there.
Absolutely.
One
Yes, sir.
virtual. Can you hear me? Hold on one second.
Do a lot of work in East Tennessee and a little in West Tennessee. I work with, in the recovery and harm reduction community with folks, who you are talking about funding and organizations. Really appreciate the dedication and the hard work I see at this table. I also see I really appreciate the presence of people here who come with their loved ones. And I know a little bit about the history of the council, not as much as I hope to, but I wonder what it might take to involve at least a couple of these people with families and their experiences have a place at this council. So I understand, I can't ask a question, but I could put it in the form of a statement. I hope, understanding that this council evolved in a certain way with a certain nominating process, I would hope that the council moving forward could consider a way to include some of these families in some of these chairs. There's some vacant ones right there at the moment. So thank you for letting me add that comment.
And thank you. And thank you for your time coming here today.
There's one virtual.
Yes, ma'am. You can come up. You can bring it with you. Mhm.
My name is Cheryl Metters. I am a lifelong resident of the state of Tennessee. I'm a native Nashvilleian. I currently live in Burns, Tennessee, which is part of a little community about 30 miles west of Nashville in Dixon County. I am a retired 40-year speech language pathologist, most of those years spent in public education. And I guess my greatest accomplishment is that I'm a mom of 2 children and a grandmother of 1. This is my son, Brian Metters, born in 1980. Brian passed away on February 20th of 2014. So we just passed a milestone of 10 years since his death. Brian struggled with substance abuse disorder from middle school ages, and that story is very common to anyone who knows individuals who have struggled for a long time with the disease. It usually, or many times, it can start at the middle school after the children make good decisions or bad decisions. And then when you compound with that, this disease that affects so many individuals, it's kind of a launch pad for many things. Brian struggled with the disease from age 12 until he passed away at age 33. We
At that time, he was with a friend and used drugs, and the friend left him alone and he passed away. Since that, at that time, there was not access to a great deal of Narcan. Not many people knew about Narcan. They didn't know how to use it, and it was not readily available. My daughter, Jennifer, is 40 years old. She loved her brother and wanted to be just like him. And so she has struggled also with the disease of substance abuse disorder for many years. I'm happy to say I have tragic parts of my life and happy parts of my life. I'm very happy to say that she is still alive today, largely in part based on her own information on the existence of Narcan. Jennifer has attended many treatment programs. She's a graduate of the DC-4 Drug Court in Nashville, Tennessee. She has been in and out. She's been incarcerated, and I see many people on the committee or council today who represent law enforcement. You know that incarceration better than anyone is not drug treatment. And you know what the recidivism rate is with those who enter on drug offenses. So you know that that's not the answer. Both my children have been incarcerated. They've both been in sober living. They have both had many opportunities for recovery. And again, I will tell you how much Narcan is enough Narcan. There isn't enough Narcan. So today she is in recovery. She just completed a 6-month program of recovery. She is studying to be a dog groomer, which is very exciting because in the past she has only been able to hold jobs in the food and beverage arena, which, and some of you may or may not know, is a hotbed for individuals with addiction because typically those jobs do not require a drug screening. So the fact that at 40 years old, she has beginnings of a new career is quite encouraging. When Jennifer was pregnant with my grandchild, Ross Netters, who is in the audience today, she was involved in a study at Vanderbilt University, and it was called the Mother Study. And this was a long time ago. But as part of that study, she received excellent prenatal care. And the result of that is a high school senior who will graduate very soon from the university or from Dixon County High School. We had a meeting with the head of the department today at the University of Tennessee in the theater department. So this is a college trip as well as a trip for this meeting. So there are many happy endings. So I'm so encouraged when I see that you are funding proposals for prenatal care for individuals, that you're funding proposal for drug court, which has been so successful in so many cases. You're definitely on the right track. I appreciate that you are excellent and you've been very good stewards of the money that has been placed before you. Not taxpayer money. This is money that you will have jurisdiction over, and that so far you're doing a good job. Many of my questions were answered today. One question that I would put forward for the future is that I looked on the website, and many of the counties who received the initial funding have not spent the money. So my question would be, why have they not spent the money? Do they need some guidance? Do they need some support? And how will the council deal with that reality that many of the counties in Tennessee still do not have organized programs? I'm very familiar with many of the grantees today, and some of these programs are excellent programs, but we need more, and we need them in more places. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment today. Thank you very much for your dedication and your willingness to participate on this council.
Thank you.
We have one person.
We have one online.
Would that be me?
Minister. It would be the speak now or forever hold your peace thing, but
Would that be me?
Hold on one second.
I won't forget you, I promise.
Okay.
He missed a lot of my sports activities. He missed holidays and birthdays, and now he will miss them all. Please use his money wisely and remember his name and others. Thank you for giving me this chance.
Thank you.
My name is Mamie McGowan. That's my beautiful daughter, Emma. This is my handsome son, Ashton. He was a son, a brother, father to Anakin and Ivy. They're soon to be 7 and 4. Grandson, nephew, and friend. He loved UT football, planned to go to UT. He loved Duke basketball and a good poker game. He adored his children, his little sister. He was a hard worker. He fought addiction for over 10 years, and he did not win this battle. We found him December 21st, 2023. His cause of death was fentanyl and kratom toxicity. Don't even get me started on that. I don't pretend to have the answers to this complex and very powerful disease. What I do know is that I do not want another mother to have to attempt to resuscitate their child. I never leave home with Narcan. I've been a nurse for 30 years. He's been gone now almost 3 months. I still have Narcan in my purse. It's a pain that no one should have to ever endure. Thank you for your hard work. I thank you for being on this council and for the work you're doing. And I pray that each decision that's made is made with these faces in mind, because I don't ever get to hear his voice again. I don't ever get to see him again. I never ever would have thought that this kid here, this extremely handsome young man, would have died from addiction, but it did. And he fought hard. He was in and out of treatment. He was in and out of jail. And he had had a year-long program at the Hope Center. And had tried really hard to stay clean, and decided, I guess, that day that he would try fentanyl, just that day. And we found him, and it was too late. So thank you very much for your work here. And just remember their names and their names, because we don't ever forget.
Thank you.
James Anthony Clark. This is our son Quentin. We're from Cheatham County, Tennessee. It's just west of downtown Nashville. Quentin passed away March 2nd of 21. It's been 3 years, 2 weeks and 2 days since he's been gone. Sometimes it feels like it's been 10 years. Some days it feels like it's been 3 weeks. Today, it's one of those days it seems like he's been gone for a long time. I don't know how many of you have children or have lost children or not. If you have, I'm sorry. Heart goes out to you. If you haven't, hope you never do. It was the single worst day of my life. I'll never have another one as bad as that day. I always say the worst day of my life has already happened. He was my only child. This is what I get to see of him. I never get to hear his voice again. All I have left. So I appreciate what y'all are doing today, y'all's due diligence. For being here and taking the time, doing what y'all are doing, because that money's going to help save a lot of lives. We couldn't save him. We couldn't save these others. But hopefully we can save more on down the line. I'm tired of seeing his friends die. I'm tired of going to funerals. I'm like, maybe I don't know what the answer is, but what we're doing is not working. It's only getting worse. So again, I thank y'all for what y'all are doing, and hopefully a lot of lives are being saved because of you people in this room, and we appreciate that. Thank y'all for having us.
Thanks, Stacey.
My name is Linda McLean, and I lost my precious daughter to carfentanil almost 4 years ago, to be April 28th, 2020. I had no plans of being standing right in this position today when I was here. I just came to see what this was about, and just God bless all of you for what you're doing. Most of what you were saying was way over my head. I'm a radiologic technologist. So this was more than what I expected. But I just want to thank you for what you're doing. This girl gave us no problem from the day she was born. I thought something was wrong with her because she was so perfect. Never did she give me any trouble. Never did I know anything was wrong. And then when I got that call, April 28th of 2020, saying from her boyfriend that she took an oxy, which I didn't even know that she was on. Evidently, she did some recreational drug usage, and my concern is that fentanyl is going to turn into carfentanil. And probably a lot of these people in this room don't even know what carfentanil is. But my concern is that it's going to turn from fentanyl to carfentanil if we don't do something. And you're doing something, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you. We have one online.
Amy, I'm
Would that
gonna
be
try
me?
to use, can you say test? See,
Test, can you hear me?
okay, yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Well, I also want to thank the council for this excellent work and the service that you're providing. My comment would be that I would hope that the council would not overlook a very significant population of victims that I fear may be overlooked in this. There's a substantial population of children born addicted to opiates in this state and across the nation, and they are suffering and their needs are being wholly unmet. The problems from the opiate exposure in the womb does not subside when the children leave in infancy. Rather, there are thousands of children who are going without treatment. They are suffering permanent, lifelong, disabling neurological conditions as a result of the opiate exposure at a time when they were developing. So these are kids who are not just recovering addicts, but they have permanent, lifelong, disabling neurological conditions that the communities, the school systems, childcare are not equipped and to address and treat and educate these children. They are going without. They are going without treatment. They are going without education. These families are going without childcare. There is a significant population of these NAS. It's not just NAS babies. The NAS babies turn into children who are really disabled and having some serious problems. And there are virtually no treatment providers, no services, virtually no research to address this. Now, I understand that the council cannot grant money to populations who don't ask for it. But we have a situation where, because there are virtually no providers, no treatment and services available for this population, there's none to write grants. So I guess I would just hope that the council would keep this in mind, not forget the children who are true victims of this. And I think that there's a lack of awareness outside of the families. It's typically families Tennesseans who adopt these children, and then they're left with next to zero support for these children. And I'm working with, we're trying to get organized, and we're both in Tennessee and nationwide. But we're not sophisticated, and I would hope that the council would remember this. If we can get organized and to get some grant requests with the next portal, I hope the council will have some grace, and that we're really unrepresented, you know. So anyway, that's all, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my boy, Chase. My name's Alan Victor, by the way. He just passed away January 16th this year. He was my only child. I just got his autopsy report back Saturday before last, and he passed away from toxicity from fentanyl and kratom. In our area, I'm from Coffee County, and in our area, Narcan is next to impossible to get your hands on, unless you got $50 to go to the drugstore and buy it. Most drug addicts in my area is not going to spend $50 on Narcan. They're going to spend it on dope. So almost immediately after my son passed away, it came over me that I needed to do something. I needed to do my part. And so I started a little nonprofit called Chase Away Fentanyl. And I've been concentrating on distributing Narcan. I'm having to buy it. And the nasal Narcan is my cost, factory direct, manufacturer direct, $30 for one shot at it, one dose. I just feel like I know for a fact that my health department has got a room full of Narcan. But when I go to get it to try and distribute it, they tell me I can have one. But they throw it away when it runs out of date. Now, I really, I don't want to get up here and self-promote or nothing, but I really appreciate what y'all are doing. I mean, I had no idea this council even existed. I was invited to come here today, and by Anthony Clark, and it's been very enlightening for me to know that there are funds out there that's available, you know, to try to help these kids. Because I mean, that's what's, our babies are dying, man. I mean, we're gonna lose a whole damn generation if we don't do something. And I don't know the answer, but I tell you what I do know. I don't ever want anybody to feel what I feel. You know, and there's got to be a solution, man. You know, drugs are like any other product. It's supply and demand. You know, if there's not a supply, there's not a demand. You know, I mean, and somehow we've got to stop it. And I don't know the answer. I wish I did know the answer. You know, but that's all I've got. I really appreciate y'all, what you're doing, and for trying to help head off this epidemic, because it's killing a whole generation. And I don't like it. I want to do my part to help. Thank y'all for letting me. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you for having the courage to stand up here. And we don't have any words. I don't think anybody has any words for that. But that is what this council is about. And we want to see less and less of those.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
motion very good. We could, on the heels of these very emotional addresses, by people who lost family members. I wonder if we could, as we begin to close this meeting, it will be sometimes open with a moment of silence for respect for those. Also, for those of us who pray, we could think about, pray about, and meditate on wisdom for those who can receive these reports and will be with these family members. Stop things that would be well spent, not for our pride or our not for research publication, but so that from the families and experiences.
I think that's a great idea, Dr. Jackson. We normally do start the meetings with that, and I think it's an appropriate way to close this one. We'll have a moment of silence for those suffering and those out there that are still suffering. And hopefully one day, we can adjourn this council for good. Thank you. Well, I texted the Attorney General just a second ago and told him we put money in the community today. I'm proud of that. Thank you all for the hard work. We said it multiple times, but it bears saying again. I appreciate it. And I know the people in this room appreciate it. People online and people out there right now know that help's on the way. Believe it or not, I do need a motion to close our meeting. I think it ought to be automatic, but I need a motion to close our meeting. I got one, but Shane Sexton. Do I have a second? Can I do this one by voice vote? All right. All in favor? Opposed? Council stands adjourned.